Today, I'm going to tell you a story in clear, easy English. We will be working at level C Advanced. Turn on the subtitles to see the translation in your own language.
I didn't mean to fall for him. I didn't mean to fall for him. I didn't plan it, dream it, or even imagine it. Some people fall in love slowly, step by cautious step. I fell by accident, like tripping over a truth I didn't know was waiting. And once I started falling, there was no way to stop. His name was Adrian, and he walked into my life the way storms arrive, quiet, unannounced, then suddenly everywhere. He wasn't supposed to be important to me. He wasn't supposed to become the person I thought about in the moments before sleep. But life rarely follows the rules we make for ourselves. When we met, I was rebuilding my life after a long relationship had collapsed. The breakup had been ugly, public, and exhausting. Friends whispered the word betrayal, but it felt deeper, like something inside me had been fractured. I told myself I needed clarity, not romance. I told myself I needed rest. I didn't know that rest would look like sitting alone in a cafe on a rainy Tuesday morning, a notebook open, a half-written to-do list staring back at me, thunder tapping at the windows, the scent of coffee settling around me like a blanket, and then Adrian. He walked in, shaking the rain from his hair, his coat dotted with droplets that glittered under the hanging lights. He ordered tea, not coffee, which I noticed only because his voice carried warmth. Not loud, not soft, just warm. Most people fade into the background when you see them for the first time, but he didn't. He had a presence that gently rearranged the space around him. Not dramatic, not commanding, just quietly undeniable. I went back to writing, though my pen hovered more than it moved. A moment later, the cafe owner walked over, apologizing for the lack of available tables. "Mind if I sit here? Only for a bit?" he asked. I looked up, straight into Adrian's waiting smile. "Only if you don't mind sharing your sanctuary," he said. The way he said sanctuary made me laugh, because that was exactly what the cafe felt like, a small, warm refuge from the chaos of the city. Reluctantly, I nodded. He sat down with polite caution, as though not wanting to disturb the air between us. We exchanged the usual introductions, names, occupations, the easy, predictable questions strangers ask when they suspect the conversation won't last long. Yet somehow ours did. It stretched, deepened, unfolded. He told me he was a historical researcher, which immediately sounded far more interesting than anything I was doing in my life. He studied forgotten letters, diaries, and documents that once belonged to ordinary people. Sometimes the smallest stories are the ones that stay with you, he said, and something about that line stayed with me. I should have ended the conversation the way I ended most with strangers, politely, quickly, with a smile that kept the world at arm's length. But Adrian asked thoughtful questions, questions that didn't make me feel observed, but understood. So I stayed. When the rain finally stopped, he stood, thanked me for sharing my table, and walked toward the door. I expected that to be the end, a passing moment, a small, harmless memory. But then he paused at the exit, turned, and said, "I hope we meet again. But if we don't, thank you for the conversation." His voice carried a sincerity that was almost startling. Then he left, and I spent the rest of the day wondering why it felt like he had taken something with him. That night, I told myself I was being ridiculous. People meet in cafes all the time. Conversations spark, fade, disappear. That's life. That's normal. But something about him lingered, the calmness of his presence, the steadiness of his gaze, the way he listened as though listening were a gift he meant to give completely. It felt rare. 2 days later, I saw him again, not at the cafe, but in the library of all places. He was in the local history section, holding a stack of old newspapers. When he noticed me, he looked genuinely surprised and happy. "Well," he said, "either the universe has an unusual sense of humor, or we're both haunting the same places." I laughed, though inside I felt a strange, nervous flutter. "I didn't know I was haunting anything," I said. He raised an eyebrow playfully.
You are.
Nicely, though. It became a pattern after that. Accidental meetings that didn't feel accidental after a while. A shared table at the cafe, a quiet corner in the library, a brief conversation on the street when our paths crossed again. He never pushed, never hinted at anything deeper, never acted as though he expected more than what I was willing to give. And perhaps that was why I started wanting to give more, because I never felt hunted, only seen. Weeks passed. I began to look forward to seeing him, though I pretended to myself that it didn't matter. We talked about books, routines, childhood memories, little confessions that slipped out more easily than they should have. He told me he had loved someone once, a long time ago, a relationship that ended because she wanted adventure and he wanted roots. We cared for each other, but we were walking in opposite directions, he said. He didn't sound bitter, just honest. I didn't talk much about my former relationship. There were still wounds, raw, sore, unstitched. But Adrian didn't ask for details. He understood silence when he heard it, and that understanding made me feel strangely safe. One evening, we left the library together as the sun dipped low. The sky was brushed with gold and deepening violet. Adrian walked beside me with the casual rhythm of someone who knew how to match another person's pace. We stopped at the crosswalk. Neither of us moved. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Balance," I said, not sure why that word came out. He smiled. "Hard thing to find." Then he added, "Especially when you're used to handling everything alone." My breath caught. He had seen more of me than I realized. Our friendship, if that's what it still was, continued to deepen. We spent entire afternoons talking without noticing the time passing. He told me about his research, his theories, his small daily habits. I told him about my work, my doubts, my slow attempt to recover myself. And he listened, always. I knew I was slipping towards something dangerous, something I thought I had sworn off. There were days I told myself to pull back, be logical, measured, careful. But every time he looked at me, I forgot the reasons. It wasn't dramatic the moment I realized I had fallen for him. It didn't strike like lightning. It didn't roar like thunder. It arrived quietly, gentle, persistent, unmistakable. We were sitting in the park on a cool morning, sharing pastries and laughing about something trivial. He read a line from an old letter he'd found, a line about how love often begins in the spaces between moments. And as he read it, he glanced at me. I felt something shift in the air, something in the way he looked at me, steady, searching, made my chest tighten. I looked away too quickly, pretending to adjust my scarf, but the shift remained. After that day, everything felt more charged. A brush of his hand against mine, a shared glance that lingered an extra second, a smile that seemed to hold an unspoken question. I tried to ignore it, but the truth grew louder. One evening, he walked me home after the streets had turned quiet. We stood at my door, neither of us wanting to say goodbye. The porch light carved shadows across his face. He studied me as though searching for permission, not to step forward, but to speak honestly. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Of course." He hesitated. "Do you ever feel like something is changing between us?" My breath stilled. I wanted to lie. I couldn't. "Yes," I whispered. The word felt fragile, dangerous, alive. He exhaled slowly, as if he'd been holding that breath for weeks. Then he shook his head softly. "Then I need to tell you something." I braced myself. I didn't know why, but some part of me sensed a shift I wasn't prepared for. Adrian stepped back slightly, creating space between us, space that felt suddenly cold. Then he spoke. "I didn't want this to happen," he said gently. "I wasn't looking for it. I didn't plan for it, but I care about you more than I should." My heart leapt and fell in the same instant, because of the way he said "more than I should," as though caring was a problem. "Why shouldn't you?" I asked. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with a look I didn't understand until he said the words, "Because I'm not entirely free." The world seemed to tilt. He wasn't married, he wasn't in a committed relationship, but he wasn't single in the way that mattered most. He had been seeing someone casually, someone who had recently asked for something more serious. "I told her I wasn't sure," he said, "that things had changed, that I needed time." Time. I felt the word strike sharp as glass. Time wasn't what I wanted. Honesty was. "You should have told me sooner," I said. "I know. I didn't because—" He swallowed hard. "Because I thought whatever this was between us would fade. I didn't mean for it to grow." Neither did I. Silence pressed between us, heavy, complicated, painful. Part of me wanted to walk inside and shut the door on the entire situation, but another part wanted to reach for him anyway. Want is a powerful thing, especially when it feels forbidden. "I don't want to hurt you," he said softly. "I don't want to be hurt," I replied. He nodded slowly, looking down. "I need to make a decision, and I need to make it without confusing you or using you to avoid the truth." "I respect that," I said, but the words tasted bitter. He stepped back again, hands in his pockets, eyes full of emotion he wasn't allowing himself to express. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "So am I," I whispered back. We didn't see each other for 2 weeks. They were long, disorienting, restless weeks. I tried to convince myself that distance was for the best, that clarity only grows in silence, but my heart disagreed. When he finally reached out, it was with a simple message: "Can we talk?" I hesitated before answering, but in the end, I agreed, because some stories demand their ending. We met in the cafe where everything had begun. He looked tired, thoughtful, changed. He sat down across from me, hands wrapped around a cup of untouched tea. Then he said the words that altered everything. I ended things with her. I didn't know how to react. Relief flooded me, but so did guilt. "I didn't ask you to," I said quietly. "I know," he replied, "but I couldn't commit to someone when my heart was somewhere else." My breath caught. "Where?" I asked, though I already knew. He met my eyes with a steadiness that stole the air from my lungs. You know where. The room felt suddenly smaller, warmer, closer, and for a moment neither of us moved. But before anything happens, he continued, I need to know what you want, not what you think you should want, not what fear tells you, what you want. I looked at him, this man who had walked into my life with gentle curiosity and become the person I thought about every night before sleep. I thought about the risk, the vulnerability, the possibility of being hurt again. I thought about the way he made me feel seen. And then I spoke. I didn't mean to fall for you, I said softly, but I did. And I don't want to pretend otherwise anymore. His expression changed, like dawn breaking across a long, dark horizon. He reached for my hand slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. When our fingers intertwined, something inside me settled, not in certainty, but in hope, a fragile, determined hope. We walked out of the cafe together, the air cool, the sky pale with early afternoon light. He didn't kiss me. He didn't rush anything. He simply held my hand as though holding it mattered. Our story didn't become perfect after that. There were conversations, hard ones. There were fears I had to confront, and apologies he had to make fully and honestly. But we walked through it, step by uncertain step. Some people fall in love with fireworks and declarations. I fell in love in whispers and pauses, in late-night conversations, in the quiet bravery of choosing trust again. I fell in love by accident, but I stayed by choice. And now, when I think back to that rainy morning in the cafe, I realize life has a strange way of giving us what we need long before we're ready to understand it. I didn't mean to fall for him, but sometimes the heart knows the path long before the mind does.
I hope you enjoyed this story. Please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell. Until next time, take care and learn something new every day.